But Eichmann did fulfill this promise. That he kept his word and gave the instruction to take Eckstein and other Jewish functionaries and execute them. They knew too much. About Gizzi Fleischmann, a struggle for her life was conducted, and the Kastner report has it in full. All the exchange of cables. Kastner relates how he begged with Becher for the life of this noble woman. And Becher turned to Eichmann. Eichmann sent a cable to Brunner to save her life, and then he sent another cable cancelling the first. And all those chapters about the atrocities and horrors of killing a woman because she tried to help Jews. They approached Himmler himself to save the life of Gizzi Fleischmann, and then Himmler was told the Slovakian government arrested her because she was spreading rumors against the Slovakian state. And during the last stages, the very last, when Himmler ordered to stop exterminations, the stop befehl, Eichmann, according to what we learn from the Kastner report, does not dare to disobey Himmler, of course. But he sends instructions to commanders of concentration camps that any offense committed by a Jew, the punishment in future will also be the capital punishment. And Wislitzeny adds how Kastner was how Eichmann was furious when it seemed to him the commanders of camps did not take the hint and did not understand that what he meant was to liquidate without an excuse, to exterminate the survivors. On page 149 of the Kastner report, he relates about his meeting with Wislitzeny. Eichmann seeks for ways and means how to sabotage this order of cease killing. He turned to the Polish camps, concentration camps, and camps. He cabled Jewish life should be kept. But if once the evacuation is carried out there are any difficulties, they should be punished most severely. And now Eichmann is furious that the commanders of those camps did not take the hint, did not understand the meaning and the importation of his order. And when Kastner asked, how could Eichmann try and sabotage Himmler's order, Wisliceny's answer is, he will draft a cable, he will compose a cable which will give him cover by Kaltenbrunner or some other high official or Miller. He will find a way. But it seems that there were camp commanders who did understand the meaning. The court heard here witnesses about transports to the east, deportations eastwards from the camps, and of what happened there, and about extermination during the very last few days when it was clear that the war was lost. They wanted to liquidate the Jews even against Himmler's order. I do not say that Himmler gave this order because he wanted to save Jews, he wanted to save his own skin. But he was seeking for an alibi. That is the reason. And the letter he sent to Sweden, submitted by me to court, is the peak and climax of cynicism and impudence. But it is a fact that Himmler's order was sabotaged. And at the
few words written by a Gentile on this story, a few poems which he composed and which are to be found in Kogan's book on the SS. They were translated into Hebrew at my request by Mr. Arias of Ner and into English by Mr. Yosef Rezen. This is what he said.
My heart I had opened to love this country. My messengers went there again and again. Countless the shapes I took on. Craving entry, none did you recognize. All was in vain. At night, a pale Hebrew, I knocked at your gate. Pursued, I sought refuge. My shoes were torn out. You called executioners, craftsmen of hate, and thought you were serving God, doing Him proud. I came as an old, frightened, dim-witted creature, speechless with anguish, dumb in her cry, but you had your eyes on the race of the future, and just for my ashes one could apply. In eastern lands, as an orphan I wandered. I knelt at your feet and I begged for some bread, but fearful, on future vengeance you pondered, and just shrugged your shoulders and wished I were dead. I have been your prisoner, dragged to forced labor, was sold into slavery, whipped, made to bow. Your eyes you averted, you liked not the flavor. I came here to judge you. You will know me now.
Not bad. Roseanne?
And Your Honors, here too we have witnessed the standing of the Jewish people, beaten, alone, surrounded by walls of hatred, surrounded by Landknechts, rising to deeds of heroism all over Europe. And in all countries. The uprising, partisans, the Jewish underground, the underground in Poland, the one we heard about in Hungary, and this from Rosenberg, organizing the escape And these two, those who went to serve and free and liberate, they said, I believe until the very end that this death was not in vain. There is no consolation
that the third of the nation has fallen, but there is solace in the fact that the Jews knew how to face the enemy with dignity and pride. And they said in those days, this is our last road. The clouds of despair had hidden the light of despair, but the time will come when a bright moment will loom before us, before those who will survive. And in conclusion of this chapter, Your Honors, I shall recall something which I omitted perhaps in the first chapter, namely the great of the people of this world, about the Yugoslavs. The Greeks, all those who cherished man in occupied countries of Europe, all those who struggled against the satanic forces of the conqueror in order to rescue men from the jaws of death. And now I'm going to take the indictment again.
The law for the punishment of the Nazis and their collaborators is the law under which Adolf Eichmann is standing trial. This law includes 3 offenses which are listed in paragraph 1. 3 crimes are defined there. A crime against the Jewish people. This is one of the acts performed with the intent of exterminating the entire Jewish nation or part, or else causing serious bodily or psychological harm to Jews, or placing Jews in such conditions where such damage may be caused to them. Let us dwell on this for a moment without going over to the other items in this law, because most of the crimes are covered by these paragraphs. Murdering Jews or causing Jews serious bodily or mental harm. We have proved, and I understand there's no dispute with the defense about this, that all the acts enumerated in this paragraph were indeed committed. We have proved the various tasks and duties of Adolf Eichmann, beginning with 4b4, which included from the very first the Ostraum, the entire eastern areas, which we remember from document T-170, is the special nomination given to Heydrich by Göring, the special assignment to find a solution for the Jewish problem, which Eichmann admits meant the extermination of the Jews. Himmler did not nominate Heydrich, it was Göring who did so. Judge Halevi, what is the difference? Mr. Hausner, the difference is that here a special mission was entrusted to them. Göring was certainly acting on behalf of the Führer because he had no special authority of his own. He charged Heydrich with a very special task, and the chain continues because Heydrich in turn did not turn to Müller and say, Müller, you will now inform Eichmann that he will be the referent, the specialist for Jewish affairs, for the final solution as well? No. He takes Eichmann, he singles out Eichmann as his right-hand man for this. That we see then is a special task outside the scope of the regular division of functions, and I've examined the accused about this at length. And he admits that this does not appear in the famous Verteiler in the list of the distribution of functions. President of Court, Verteiler is the distribution list. Mr. Hausner, yes, I'm sorry. I meant the list of the distribution of functions, not the distribution of mail. And he agrees, therefore, that this task, although it was parallel with that of the head of the Jewish Affairs Department in the Gestapo, was not listed explicitly with its horrible name, not even with any camouflage in this list of the functions of the RSHA. Rather, he says, my function was in the eastern areas, from the Reich eastward. He says in the west, others did this. I've examined him about this at length, and I've spoken about this at length, but I want to say this. About this nomination, this authorization, I want to say the following. If indeed the government general area had a unit which dealt in the extermination autonomously, and if we are to say that Krüger and Globocnik carried this out in Poland, without any contact with the RSHA, this would be as if we said that Göring's order and the Wannsee decisions were not kept. Because we must remember, Your Honors, the chief of the RSHA does not have executive authority with regard to Krüger. The authority to give orders to the senior SS and police commanders was with Himmler, as we learned from document T-98. That is to say, if Krüger was autonomous and was the only person in that area who gave orders to his deputy Globocnik, or who set in motion the other apparatus in the government general area, then Eichmann's version that there was some kind of a link here between Heydrich and Krüger is made impossible, is rendered null and void. And if we take Heydrich out of this picture, then Göring's order remains suspended in mid-air, and the Wannsee decisions would never have been implemented. But we know that one of the not too insignificant reasons for summoning the Wannsee Conference was, as we see in document T-182 under the initials 4B4, to bring about this conference precisely because the Governor General Frank showed an inclination to act autonomously and independently in Jewish affairs. And the idea was to restrain this independent action by Frank. They forced him to send Bühler to the conference, and Bühler made the statement which I have already referred to several times. Judge Rave, was Goering's nomination personal? Mr. Hausner, yes, it was personal to Heydrich, just as in January 1939 he was nominated in person to deal with Jewish emigration. So this time he was told, I am entrusting you with the task of finding a final solution. Judge Rave, what happened to this when Heydrich died, Mr. Hausner? This naturally was transferred to his successor, because when his successor became the chief of the RSHA, he automatically took over these tasks. And here Eichmann is right. Here all the various branches came into the picture. And he's right. He harnessed the entire apparatus of the RSHA, the Bureau 2, Rauch's technical department, the legal advisors. Everyone was a partner to this. And when Heydrich was killed and Kaltenbrunner was nominated, Kaltenbrunner carried out the same task which Heydrich was entrusted with. President of court, there is something in the document T-82, isn't there? Mr. Hausner, but Kaltenbrunner says no, there was no special nomination, because in the meantime matters were carried out in their practical stages. Eichmann was in control and there was no need to issue another nomination. Judge Halevi, but there's no doubt also that Himmler often gave special orders for the extermination of Jews. Mr. Hausner, certainly, Your Honor, if the court understood me to say that I mean that the nomination to Heydrich was not with the consent of Himmler, of course then I was misunderstood. Obviously, it is quite clear that Himmler was partner to this, and that Himmler desired this. And moreover, it is clear to me that Himmler was one of the chief conspirators, and next to Hitler, he was the second highest criminal. But this does not make any difference. When the matter entered the stage of implementation, then the executive apparatus, which was here subordinated to Himmler, certainly was interwoven with Himmler's jurisdiction, and Himmler could give orders to Heydrich and to Eichmann, and did so, and got reports. Judge Halevi, and he could order Krieger as well. Mr. Hausner, yes, Krieger as well. Of course. But the question is, which version, or rather, which proof is there? Except for what Eichmann says here, that in the government general area, this was done above the head of the RSHA. That it went Himmler, Krieger, Globotchnik, because this is how he tries to describe it. It could have been that way, theoretically, but we see on the other hand the Wannsee record where Heydrich says specifically, let us bring Frank here to harness him into this. And what did Heydrich say at the opening of Wannsee? He said, look here, not you will solve the Jewish problem. I was entrusted with this task. I will carry this out. There are no geographical limits to my jurisdiction. It covers the entire Reich and the occupied areas. And how does the Wannsee Conference end? That Biller accepts the authority of Heydrich and says, go ahead, do it, but do it quickly. So we have the minutes of the Wannsee Conference. We have the comprehensive Göring order. We have the description submitted by us, by the defense, saying that Eichmann acted without any provisos, without any exceptions, that he was the representative everywhere. They don't say except for the government general area. We have Vislitseni's direct testimony saying that Eichmann gave priority to the extermination of Polish Jewry. This is in document T85, page 10, the printed version. In the middle of the paragraph, Vislitseni says, he says about the order of the countries, Eichmann took his time for this because the extermination of Polish Jewry and the deportation of Jews from the Reich appeared to him to be most urgent. He gave it priority. So that we have direct testimony for this from his assistant. We have the Wannsee documents and the Göring order. Possibly in Poland there were fewer struggles, because there they exterminated the Jews and there was no need to bring them elsewhere. There was no need to transfer them to another country, only to take them to the death camps. And there was no need to struggle against the French government or the Romanian government or the Slovakian government. And there was no need to create a legal basis for this. All one had to do was institute roundups and deport the people. In the government general area, he had less to worry about. His concern about the hundreds of thousands of Jews in the East and their uprooting certainly caused him more bother and difficulties than the uprooting of the millions in the East. They were there. They were near the places of extermination. All they had to do was to bring them to the gas chambers proper. And that he was engaged in the liquidation of the ghettos of Bialystok and Lodz, which were not in the government general area, but this was part of the liquidation of the ghettos. This we know. We have testimony from Friedel about this, about 10,000 Jews whom Günther deported from Bialystok. We have the report from 4B4 to Himmler about the transport of 45,000 Jews from Bialystok to Auschwitz, the last transport. People among whom only 10 to 15,000 were found capable of physical labor. And incidentally, the accused, to the best of my recollection, did not comment on the Friedel testimony at all with regard to the liquidation of the Bialystok ghetto. Judge Rave, do you think, sir, that there is significance to the fact that Globocnik requested special authorization as long as Heydrich was alive, but later on we did not hear about this anymore, about any such authorization or requests for that? Mr. Hausner, yes, there is significance to this fact. First of all, sir, there is importance to the very fact that he asked for such authority from Heydrich and not from Krieger, because if the chain would have gone as Eichmann claims, Himmler, Krieger, Globocnik, then there would have been no sense for any application to Heydrich in the first place. Therefore, here there is considerable importance of the first order to the fact that that Globocnik applied to Heydrich to receive this authorization. And later, sir, at the end of 1942, Judge Rave, Operation Reinhardt began after Heydrich's death, didn't it? Mr. Hausner, yes, of course. Operation Reinhardt, sir, proceeded under the motto, finish them all. There were no problems of numbers anymore, of quotas. The slogan was, finish them off, kill them all, and take their property. No more authorization was needed, because what were these permissions? Apparently Globocnik was exceeding his quota, and he was in need of some kind of authority. He killed more Jews than he was permitted. And incidentally, Zasen here read to Eichmann a document which was not known to us from the originals. And from the reprint, I read this out to the accused. He read to him a document which contained this same retroactive order. We do not have it in the original. We only heard it from Eichmann himself. Now, what does this order say? You killed more Jews than you had been entitled to? Here is your authority. But now that you are entitled to kill them off, all of them, then no cover is needed anymore. And no more letters of authorization are needed. They did not speak about quotas and numbers anymore at that stage. There were no more interim stages to liquidate this community before that one. All of Poland was marked for death. The ghettos which had been left as ghettos for working Jews, these were outside the government general area. They were in Bialystok, in Lodz, and they were in the Ostraum, not in the government general area. There, the Jews were either in the death camps waiting their turn, like Travniki, Poniatowa, and the other so-called labor camps in the Lublin area, or at Auschwitz. Judge Rave, in any event, you do not see in this, sir, an indication that authority was transferred elsewhere. Mr. Hausner, not at all, sir. We see that Kaltenbrunner was engaged in the very same tasks. He did not deny this.
He only said, for his own defense in this trial, I didn't start all this. I came there where everything was ready, where everything was already nearing the conclusion stage. But Kaltenbrunner himself did not deny that he actually inherited this great work.
Judge Halevi, is there any proof as to who gave the order for Operation Reinhardt, or who gave the signal for it, the directive?
There is no direct proof, Your Honor. We can, of course, reconstruct the situation very clearly in the light of what happened subsequently. At any rate, the fact, and here I wanted to say something, when the Council for Defense wants to infer that from it that Globocnik reported to Himmler on the conclusion of the operation, I'll still speak about this report. This is not a conclusive hint in any way that Himmler was the one who gave orders. We knew about the particular status of Globocnik, and we also read in his report what he expected of Hitler, the distinctions and furloughs for people who distinguished themselves in this particular job. At any rate, From summer 1941, when Hitler, the supreme commander of the German forces, decided on the extermination of all the Jews, the matter is simply that of certain priorities so far as efficiency goes. Eichmann said himself, when I interrogated him, that all the Jews were earmarked to death, and he said that he hoped later on he had to retract it, that the German Jews from the Reich would not be affected right away and would not be exterminated with the same amount of cruelty. But I showed him an order of October 1941, according to which he himself earmarked 50,000 Jews from the Reich for the Neve and Rush camp. He agreed that also those Jews were earmarked for destruction. Later on, it was then a purely administrative matter of priorities. The only matter was whom to send first. We saw also Franz the Tsar to fulfill the economic mission entrusted to him by Hitler, and therefore, and only therefore, he wants to leave some Jews in vital economic centers. And then we see the struggle, the ardent struggle between those who want to keep Jews for economic purposes and those who are intent upon utter destruction.
Judge Halevi, how about the argument that Krieger and Globocnik and others were the command of the
head of the RSH
commanders in that matter?
Had no supervision over Krieger and others. This is to be found in T98, which is defining the authorities of the superior SS and police officers.
President of Court, there could have been coordination.
Coordination, of course, but no immediate supervision.
Interpreter's correction. The previous question by Judge Halevi should have been whether Krieger and his the others had command over the RSHA there.
This would run counter to the Van's decisions, and there is no reason why the court should lose sight of the document, which reflects it very clearly what has been said, just because he wants to jettison from his conscience 2.5 million Jews. Others too were trying to resort to the same subterfuge. They admitted everything but the general government, because they knew that the most heinous crimes were committed there.
President of Court, it looks rather strange to me that no more documents were kept in Poland. In Germany, this is not astonishing. There they did a fairly good job in destroying the documents. But there too, local archives were kept. Now, where are the local archives in Poland?
We know from Frank, everything had been destroyed except his memoirs. Everything had been destroyed. One could find some relics of documents here and there. Each time the Poles are finding something new, and what is interesting that only now, Your Honors, 14 years after the setting up of a committee examining the Nazi crimes, this is a government committee dealing with documents. Only now, bulletins 12 and 13, which we had submitted to the court, mention deportations engineered by 4B4 department, and this was unknown to the historians. It was not mentioned in relevant literature, and only now it's found, 14 years after the victory. 14 years after the setting up of the committee, only now the material which affects them no less than it does affect us, because it refers to the deportations of Poles. Only now had it been discovered. I do not know what is the reason for the slowness of this discovery, but we know that the effort to destroy all documents was most serious. This we know full well. And Frank points out with pride that his memoirs had not been destroyed and that he places it at the disposal of the prosecution. Many things were to be written anew. Many writers dealing with the Holocaust had to remold their statements in the light of the new discoveries, and also, if I may say so in all humility, also in the light of what had been revealed in the course of this trial. The proof submitted by us to you, Your Honors, have proved the criminal conspiracy aimed at killing the Jews with an intention of exterminating them root and branch. And as we put it in the first count of the indictment, we have proved about the activities in the Reich, the activities of the Einsatzgruppen, and also the activities of the extermination squads. We have proved the conspiracy of the Einsatzgruppen and the link of the accused with them. The first count dealing with the killing of Jews by means of putting them in conditions propitious to their extermination is 1b3 of the law, proved by the testimonies about the ghettos, about deportations, about concentration camps. All this had been proved up to the hilt by scores of witnesses, and there is no doubt whatsoever about it. According to the testimony of Dr. Dvorzewski, one sees how the Jews were being kept in conditions bringing about their death as a result of weakness and starvation. Even if they hadn't been sent to crematoria or gas chambers, they would have died due to the conditions of starvation and weakness into which they had been reduced. And now let's go to the intention of killing and exterminating Jews. The intention may be either complete or partial extermination. One exterminates a people in various means. The law itself determines that it is possible to embark on actions with a view to exterminating a nation by destroying its cultural assets. And the intention to exterminate the Jewish people, at least partially, existed already in the very first actions taken by the Nazi Germany. It was not the intention to exterminate the people up to the hilt, but when they embarked on actions against a man just because he is a Jew, not because he is a man A and B who was guilty of this or that, or a man of some particular characteristics, Or if we take an absurd example, a man whose IQ is too low and therefore he is to be done away with. As soon as they embarked upon actions against Jews only as Jews, that they arrested them, sent them to Buchenwald or Dachau, that they confined their synagogues to flames, when they promulgated race laws against them. At that moment, the intention for partial extermination of the Jewish people loomed clear. As it was said in the Pell case by the Supreme Court, when one acts against a man because he belongs to one particular group, with a clear intent to hit this particular group and not to hit this man as such, this is an action aimed at extermination. And therefore the terror of Dachau, mass arrests, deportations to Zbonchin, breaking of Jews in body and spirit, are creating the situation propitious to mass suicides. Putting Jews in concentration camps in conditions where it is absolutely immaterial who is going to survive or not. That only those who are the strongest and who can resist better can be saved from death. All this are acts stemming from the intent to exterminate the Jewish people. Of course, in the first steps, this was only an intent to arrive at a partial extermination, and at a particular stage, this intent was crystallized into a desire to exterminate the Jewish people totally. Also the Brown file, with all the corrections, show quite clearly that the Jews are to be brought to conditions propitious to expedite their extermination. The court requested me to recall Rosenberg's statement with regard to the Brown file, and his statement is found in the protocol of the International Court in Nuremberg, in volume 11 of the German edition, pages 678, where Rosenberg says, "I didn't write these things though, but this is included in a circular, Rundschreiben, which stemmed from the Ministry for Eastern Affairs, and therefore I am responsible for the action connected with this Brown file." If it please the court, I will now dwell on item 3, 4, and 6 of the indictment, because they have common elements. The third count speaks about harm, spiritual and bodily, inflicted on Jews. The count number 6 speaks about crimes against humanity by means of persecuting the Jews, and count number 7 speaks about the looting of Jewish property. I will say at the outset of my statement here that count number 3 sums up the situation in chapter 2 when it speaks about serious bodily and spiritual harm in Germany, in occupied areas, and in all areas submitted to German supervision. The examples which we gave thereafter in chapter D are only given as an example. The one who brought Jews, or even Jews who had been rescued, to the conditions created there, had caused them serious bodily and moral harm, harm that cannot in any way be compensated. Rivka Yoselewska will certainly not be what she used to be before the World War. Also Dr. Weller and Wells, and Beisky and others, all those who